3-day period, but we'll take it however we can get it. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Blair,
Present.
Dr. Olson,
Present.
Mr. Strawn,
Here.
Ms. Tu,
Here.
Ms. Warren. Here. Chair Cantu.
Here, we have a quorum. I want to remind anybody who wishes to address the board this morning to fill out the cards located in the back of the table. If you're on Zoom, you need to fill out the speaker request form, which I don't know how you do that, but I think everybody has been sent that information. So I don't have any cards. I'm just letting people know if you intend to speak, you have to get a card to me somehow. So I'm suspecting that we have nobody in public forum who wishes to address us because I have no cards. Okay. Yes, sir. We have one card coming up. Okay, so I'll waste time until you're ready. The water board's procedures and traditions are to keep a time at the beginning of each meeting for an item that is not on the agenda that you would like to bring to our attention. Everybody who does that has 3 minutes. Part of our process of having regional boards decentralized throughout the state of California is to be able to hear the people in the regions that we are involved in. So it's an important agenda item where people of the community can come and share with us whatever their concerns are for 3 minutes. Unless it's on the agenda, then we go by the rules of the agenda. So do we have a card now?
Yes, but it's for the agenda items.
Oh, it's for the agenda items. Okay, you're in good shape. We'll call your agenda item when it's your turn. Moving on to board business. We'll consider the adoption of the board meeting minutes of December the 11th as mailed. We have one motion. Do we have a second? And a second. Any discussion?
Since it sounds like it's just being recorded, you might want to name the board members who moved and seconded. Sorry.
Good idea.
I would like to move the motion to approve the minutes of December 2nd.
Yin Tu has moved the motion.
Gary and I will second it.
Gary Sean seconds the motion. Since there is no discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Blair,
Aye.
Dr. Olson,
Aye.
Mr. Strawn,
Aye.
Ms. Tu,
Aye.
Ms. Warren.
Aye.
Chair Cantu.
Aye. The minutes are approved. We want to start with an extra special activity that we get to do not very often, but when we do, we are very happy about it. And that is to award a Superior Accomplishment Award to one of our many hardworking, self-sacrificing, mission-driven staff members who, under very difficult circumstances, usually such as a lack of budget and a lack of personnel, nevertheless are able to achieve outstanding accomplishments. And we have one of those to celebrate right now. So will you join me in front of the group here? And I'll call up Joanne Lynn. First, let me pre-congratulate you. We've seen you in front of the board many times. We're very impressed with your work, and we know most of your work is behind the scenes. So I have a few things to say about you. Since 2022, your unit has lost 3 experienced and productive team members. It's not particularly unusual in that happening, through departures and a promotion. You have had to take on the management of several additional NPDES permitted facilities and currently are responsible for overseeing over half of the 27 individual NPDES permits issued by this board. So you're very important to us. Mm-hmm. Over the last 2.5 years, Joanne has conducted 70% of the 60 compliance evaluation inspections completed by the 5 staff positions assigned to the source control regulation unit. So it's understandable why you wear tennis shoes. She also manages the pre-treatment program and conducted 100% of the pre-treatment compliance inspections and audits, which I think is the first time I've ever heard 100% for anybody, going back many years. So not only did you fulfill the pretreatment program inspection requirement, but you gave the San Diego region the distinction of being the only region in the state to have conducted any pretreatment inspections and audits since 2022. This is really outstanding. You are a critical, reliable, and remarkably productive member of the Source Control Regulation Unit, and this award is a small token of our appreciation for the work that you have done for the board to protect water quality in the San Diego region. Thank you. And there is a small stipend that comes with this. So there's, something to look forward to. And the most important thing is the certificate of recognition. You should show them. So in the future, they'll know which one it was. Congratulations. There's been a lot of scrutiny recently of the value of public servants, and I have to say that the public servants that I have seen in the water boards statewide, and of course in our region, but also at the state board and throughout the regions, are all made up of people who would continue to do the work if their pay was not as good as it barely is. And it's that reason that they probably keep working and their pay scale lags behind the market because they are mission driven and they do important work for all of us in the state of California. So we'll start with our state board liaison. We have a report that was sent, that was emailed, that Nicole Morgan, our state board board member representing us to the state board, will I guess summarize or answer any questions. It's up to you.
Sure. Happy to actually go over just a little bit of it, just so that everyone here can also hear what's going on at the state board, and then happy to answer any questions. Won't go over the entirety of all of the information that was sent, but happy to answer any questions on any of the items. So just for everyone, as of December 2024, that just sounds like so odd to me. The Office of Public Participation has transitioned to a newly formed Office of Public Engagement, Equity, and Tribal Affairs. And as so many like to do, they have shortened that and they keep calling it OPTA. So if you happen to hear that, they're referring to the new Office of Public Engagement, Equity, and Tribal Affairs. This change reflects the expanded scope of our work and the need to ensure that these efforts are elevated and clearly defined within our organization. So, I am really excited about this change. When a few years ago, in 2021, the board had combined the two offices under communications, and then just really have recognized that there needs to be a split and have both of these offices elevated. Is really important to elevate not only just communications and making sure that we are communicating effectively about all the important work that the board does, but then also about making sure that our public engagement is also equally elevated and that we're really engaging with all of the public within California. And so that happened in December. I'm really happy about this, reorganization and real focus on making sure that we're effectively engaging outward to all that we serve. And so the Los Angeles firestorms, there was also fire here in the San Diego area. And we are, as a state, so that's the state board, the regional boards, all actively engaged in assisting with the fires. And then, of course, well, I should say with the fires and the aftermath of the fires, with the storms coming in, still will be actively engaged on the ground, assessing, helping with the cleanup and the recovery of those fires. Making California a way of life, the regulation went into effect on January 1st, 2025. There's a fact sheet, FAQ, and a primer that is on the state board's website. And so the first reports were due January 1st of this year. 75% were submitted on time. Another 2% was submitted January 7th. Those keep rolling in. Anyone has questions, please reach out to our staff. Please go to the website. Lots of good information are there. We are really here to help with compliance, making sure everyone has the information they need to submit the reports. The integrated report cycle, that is just never ending. So the 2026 report cycle, yesterday there was a remote public workshop to provide an overview of this report cycle. Staff from the state and regional water boards were available to answer questions. And there is a program webpage that does have additional information. But as always, you can also reach out to staff and engage with us. We are always available. The Bay Delta update, that is actively going. Staff are holding working group meetings, really trying to dig in and just ask questions, just to really, I want to say, just understand where we can get some alignment on some of the issues and questions that have been coming up during the board workshops, and to make sure that we are really hearing and understanding what the issues are and really working through those. That's something that the State Water Board members ask staff to do. And so those are occurring. There have been several that have already occurred. There's a few more that are planned over the upcoming month here. And so if you are interested, please reach out. There is also the dates are on our webpage. Have to sign up for those individually for each of those meetings. There are, let's see, this week, there are a couple next week. I know we have a workshop on, we have a holiday on Monday, so our board meetings are Tuesday. No, they're normally Tuesday, Wednesday, they're Wednesday, Thursday next week. And there is a working group meeting unfortunately, next Thursday, when we're also having the workshop for the SIGMA workshop for probationary hearing. And so there is also both of those occurring at the same time. The Administrative Hearings Office, our AHO, is having 2 hearings right now. The Delta Conveyance Project. There is those hearings begin on February 18th. They also have the Sites of Project Authority, and those hearings will continue on February 21st and then the 24th and through the 26th. And so both of those are under ex parte, so I cannot answer questions. However, there are, information is on the web pages. All of those are streamed on the AHO's, the Administrative Hearing Office's YouTube channel. So I am available if there are any questions, and definitely if there's anything that I did not cover and that you would like to hear more about, please let me know.
Any questions? Yes.
And with respect to the response to the LA fires, will there be an opportunity for the Los Angeles Regional Board to collect what went right, what went wrong, just in terms of our jurisdiction and our sort of scope of work, and report that out to the other boards?
So yes, so what happens after each one of these, our Office of Emergency Management and Program. So each time that we are engaged on any activities such as the Los Angeles fires, there is a debrief after to really go through and talk to everyone that is involved to really understand, do that check. And so that is open to anyone, but then also we can report that back to you to let you know. And, that is something that happens. We also learned from the fires in Maui, and we have incorporated that into our response this time. We shared what we had learned through our fires with Maui, and then they have shared back with us. And so we're doing this on a large scale and really learning and adjusting after each unfortunate event.
Yeah, I think, Dave, if we could put that as an informational item, I don't know if it's 9 months or a year out, I think it'd be really interesting and maybe the public, would want to listen in and hear as well. Like versus doing it I was thinking about doing it at the Water Quality Coordinating Council meeting, but to be honest, I don't know that attendance is really great at those meetings. And I think it'd be better if we could agendize it here and have it for our community.
Yes, thank you. We've had those updates before, but since we've had new fires and new circumstances and another opportunity again for us to learn and be prepared for the future. So we'll work with State Board to provide an update when we've collated and compiled and understood the information, probably towards the end of the year.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Dave, that this LA fire is a little bit different too, because it's really urban fire compared to some of the others that we had in California, more the rural.
I had a conversation with the chair of San Diego and their EO. And they're asking the questions about, are you just going to build back fast, which is what tremendous pressures to do so, which is perfectly understandable. People want their homes and return to normalcy. Or are we going to look at lessons learned and see if we can build back better and really incorporate planning decisions, construction positions that are water quality based in terms of fire prevention. So they're actively looking at that, and they've been talking to departments across the county of Los Angeles and the city of Los Angeles. So I think that's a brilliant idea. Any other questions for board member Nicole Morgan? Thank you very much for coming down in an early rainy day.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is the time where we can invite other board members for updates or things we haven't met we're dark in the month of January, so it's been a long time. Does anybody have any things to add? Okay, we'll turn it over to our executive officer, which will have two parts in his presentation. We've brought out a separate transboundary flows part, which will be second to your general EO
Thank you.
report.
Thank you, Chair Cantu, members of the board. Are there any questions on the written report you've received?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the meeting with the San Diego environmental professionals. One of the questions that was listed that came out of the Q&As was whether there would be like an ambient background level for PFAS. And that struck me as such an interesting question, and maybe that there's significantly more to unpack there. So I don't know whether that's, again, deserving of an informational item when the time is right, but I think that's really something we're gonna have to wrestle with.
Yeah, I would agree. It is certainly something we're wrestling with recycled water reuse, for example, just to name one issue, as well as remediation of contaminated groundwaters. We've had a few information items on this. I'm not aware right now what the state's position or planning is in terms of ambient background levels. I suspect that ultimately it's functionally zero. But how we prioritize our work on certain water basins, groundwater basins, especially in others, is a key issue. Our staff are here and they are prepared to answer any other questions, but we will look at bringing back another information item later in the year. I will further add that we've had questions and concerns from members of the community previously, and then again, most recently about PFAS and PFOA and what we're doing about it in and around San Diego Bay. So it is very much a relevant issue.
I can tell you the difficulty in looking for baby clothes that have not been treated with PFAS. And it looks like you have to go to Germany or, order out from Germany to where PFAS has been banned for a longer time. So it's all around us.
Good morning, Dr. Olson.
Yes, I wanted to ask about, so there was a form of PFAS, and forgive me because I can't recall the name, that they said because of its structure, it was not taken up biologically. So the alkyl forms, and then, I don't know, it's a branch form, or does anybody recall that? It was in the executive officer's report.
Laura Quinton is online and has her hand up to respond.
Good morning.
Go ahead, Laura.
Member Olson. Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think it was in the one of the presentations that was given during that event. One of the persons working at Eurofins mentioned that there's a difference between the non-polymer and the polymer PFAS, and the polymer PFAS basically have been researched, and because of their chemical properties, apparently can't cross the dermal, not the dermal, sorry, the cell membranes. So that's what she was referring to. And I have not personally looked up the research on the polymeric PFAS because this is not the focus currently of either State Board or even the US EPA for what we found in drinking water nationwide. But I can look into it more if you're more interested in hearing from that.
So do we know what is going to be happening going forward? I mean, this is the first time I've heard about a type that wasn't, I guess it doesn't go in humans and maybe some types of animals too. So is the state gonna look at PFAS, or did any of your presenters talk about the regulatory viewpoint toward a compound that's different?
I'm not aware of that, but I could ask our State Water Resources Control Board PFAS expert and get back to you on that if you want.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Excuse me. Any other questions for Executive Officer? So we'll invite you to talk about the Tijuana transboundary flows.
Thank you. As you have noted, the Executive Officer's report has, I think, about 22 pages of information on the border issues. They are several in nature. What I want to inform you is we've been working since last summer on a website that will incorporate most of that information and be updated closer to real time and allow us to publish a more abbreviated update for you in the Executive Officer's report with links to the relative sections that are important. We're continuing to meet with IBWC weekly on compliance issues and plant operations issues. They've attained compliance with the time schedule order effluent limitations and are maintaining it. We are looking to see how well prepared they are for the current storm that's coming in. So that has been an issue in the past. However, their Junction Box 1 remedial measures appear to be effective so far in controlling flows into the plant, and as well as additional gates have been installed in Mexico, which we hope will also take some of the pressure off the plant from stormwater inflow and infiltration. That has been what has damaged the plant in the past, compiling and furthering damaging issues of neglect, which they are now well ahead of and addressing. I will also report that we met with the design team, the consultants and contractors, IBWC and EPA in January to talk about the early design features and options for the plants. It's really too early to share too much of that information. They're at the 10% progressive design build phase, but we're hoping to be able to report out later this summer some of the key decisions on the primary treatment system that have already been made that will economize and further the funds available by Congress for better plant design and features. I think we are all in agreement, and I will speak for the others, that we don't want to do design features on the cheap. We have an opportunity to get this plant right, and we're still dealing with issues that were economy measures in 1997 that have impaired the ability of IBWC to properly and fully operate the plant as any other discharger would in our region. So we're committed to getting the best design out of the money available. And right now there is about $605 million available with the additional augmentation of the budget in January. IBWC is in a much better position now for the international treatment plant to do the design and expansion properly. It will nonetheless take several years more of design and then a couple of years of construction, at least one more year of design and 2 years of construction at a minimum. And that's assuming there are no significant problems along the way. So we'll keep you updated on that. I was happy to represent the regional board at the Tijuana River Working Group. This is a group of elected lawmakers. It's led currently by the staff of Representative Peters and Representative Vargas. Staff from Representative Levins and Jacob's office were also in attendance, as well as U.S. Senator Schiff and U.S. Senator Padilla, State Senator Padilla, and Assemblymember David Alvarez, the cities of San Diego, Coronado, the county of San Diego, and the U.S. Consulate. They received updates from IBWC. EPA was not able to attend. The discussion of the transboundary flows was discussed. I reminded them that these flows prior to 2021 were not routine and daily and normal, and we should continue to send the message to Mexico to abate the flows now that PB1, the pump station, is fully operational. While we can't run PB Sela, the river diversion, during the rain, PB Sela was turned off on January 26, 27, and it has not been turned back on since, even though for a couple of weeks we didn't have substantial rainfall. Flows were still high nonetheless because of human sources as well as post-stormwater sources. So we continue to put the pressure on them to address the flows originating in Mexico so that we have fewer impacts and issues. In Imperial Beach, the hydrogen sulfide levels continue to be high, and in fact, they've been routinely exceeding the 30 parts per billion human health level set in California nightly for the last several weeks as the flows have returned full time. So we will also have an opportunity. We received a report from the County of San Diego on the CASPER study conducted by CDC, as well as the other studies on human health effects. I've invited them to come and present that to you in March. The earliest availability, and the material information is available on the website and linked from the report. It tells us what we already knew, that a significant percentage of the public feels significantly harmed and continuing to be harmed. And the source of this is the flows from Mexico, and the abatement is the way to cure it. In the meantime, though, local agencies are continuing to look at ways to optimize the Tijuana River so that there's less aerosolization and less spreading of the aerosols from Saturn Avenue, especially. They installed riprap. Not really clear that that helped a whole lot, but at least it was a first approximation to address it. I can also report that trash boom that was installed in December with state funds by RCAC, the Rural Community Assistance Center, and Alter Terra appears to be working. So far, so good, knock on wood. This is going to be the first real significant storm event it faces. It did capture trash during the most recent storm events and held it in place. So we're looking to quantify the trash to see how much loading occurs during a storm event, and also to test this design. Project J in the record of decision is a permanent trash boom. If this one works, that would be great. If not, then we've at least informed what the permanent trash boom should be, that should be installed in the Tijuana River to deal with the trash. In Smuggler's Gulch, the County of San Diego is proceeding on its state-funded grant to build a sediment basin and trash boom there. And we also have the sediment basins and trash boom in Goat Canyon in operation currently. That will allow us to achieve the load allocations that were considered in the advanced restoration plan you adopted in December for trash. The bacterial indicators one is a bigger challenge, and that would require increased capacity at the International Treatment Plant and or a river diversion treatment system in the United States to complement the river diversion system in Mexico that pumps it to the coast. So we'll continue to report on those to you. Proposition 4, the state voters approved it. There's $50 million for the border rivers. I presented this to the Tijuana River Valley Recovery Team Steering Committee, asked for their input. I received input from several parties. I'm compiling a potential project list right now for the State Water Resources Control Board Division of Financial Assistance, which has official responsibility over the Bond Act dollars. My plan is to bring a resolution to you probably in April with a recommended list of top priorities for State Board to consider for that funding when it becomes available in the new fiscal year starting in July. This is in practice with what we did in 2019 when there was the potential for federal funds. We would identify projects from the record of decision, projects from the recovery team, work plan, the 5-year action plan that's now about 8 years old, and so on, in terms of addressing the impacts and also the sources. There's a potential there for projects in Mexico also, and the bond language requires a 1-to-1 match there. So it's an opportunity to extend the money further. And we have met with the North American Development Bank and State Board on several of the options that they will consider. So unless there are any questions, that concludes my report and my update on the transboundary flows.
Questions?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question. One of the questions is in the Casper study that was released. It said that now there's undertaken a prospective longitudinal study. And my question is that directed at all at children? Is it just overarching, or how is it? What's the emphasis on children?
I think that that's a good question for the county staff when they come and present that information. I simply don't know the answer. However, I think we would all acknowledge that the children, especially at the elementary school and residing nearby, are the most sensitive receptors and a key concern of ours.
My other question was, in light of the fact that we continue to have dumping into the river, And I read in the report, it sounds like there are a lot of nice things that are going to occur, hopefully on the Mexican side. As this goes forward, is there any means to codify that Mexico actually follows and utilizes the infrastructure that will be built for them?
That is generally addressed in Minute 328 itself and in the U.S. treaty between the United States and Mexico that govern water quality and water supply on the border through IBWC. It is also a key provision of the USMCA. However, while it is also a key provision of the binational statement of intent signed by both countries, and Mexico committed $144 million to its components of that. Ultimately, though, it comes down to a nation-to-nation discussion and probably additional treaty minutes to ensure that what is constructed now and is under construction now under Minute 328 is operated and maintained the way we envisioned it when it was partially funded by the U.S. or entirely funded by Mexico in contribution to the issue.
So in regard to the working group, the legislative one that you addressed, did they indicate what actions they may take to be able to address this continuing issue?
That's an internal approach for each office. They didn't make a statement about what they as an individual lawmaker or group were going to do, except that they continued to communicate the concerns that the federal government through IBWC and EPA address with Mexico and through the U.S. consulate address with Mexico in terms of the sources and abatement of those sources.
Addressing them to whom?
To Mexico.
Oh, they're just, okay. So they have a legislative to legislative group that meets between Mexico?
No, they were
and-
asking the U.S. consulate office and although the U.S. ambassador wasn't there, but to elevate this to the Department of State to communicate our concerns and our expectations with regard to the binational funding and the agreements under Minute 328 and the binational statement of intent to identify and abate the sources. I will further note here, Dr. Olson, I think it's a key part of your question is IBWC, both the Mexico and U.S. sections, committed to doing a study last summer. You may recall, they reported it to us in August on the sources of the flows, which EPA identified in Mexico. That report is still in Mexico and, quote, being reviewed. The lawmakers and I expressed our supreme frustration with that. I think that they should be transparent and forthcoming about the issues, let us understand them, let us perhaps even help. So I did direct that comment specifically to the U.S. consulate staff that they communicate our concerns of the lack of transparency on identifying the sources of the flows, which they themselves agreed to report on last summer. And that's the Mexican section and the U.S. section of IBWC. We can't make the agencies in Mexico do things, but we can, again, emphasize how important it is for us to understand what they're working on, how they're dealing with it, and if there are opportunities for us to help. There is a plan for a bypass for the international collector connection. I didn't mention that in my report, but that was a key concern because when they take the international collector off, the old one that's broken, they have to deal with the flows coming through that pipeline. And the plan was at the time to release them to the river. We pushed back on that. The U.S. Section Commissioner in particular emphasized how important it is to not do that. EPA and NIDBank remembered that they had requirements in their grant agreements that did not allow for that bypass. So they were bringing a bypass system in from Acapulco to connect that. And so my understanding is either this month or early next month, they will do that work and they will bypass the flows so that they don't get discharged to the Tijuana River. But I will believe that when I actually see it and see the job completed and finished.
Can you be sure and update us on whether or not that occurs?
I certainly will.
Thank you very much.
Have you received any assurances or heard one way or another that the 600 million plus allocated for the IBWC plant on our side is secure? I mean, there's been so much talk about clawing back and ceasing grants.
Thank you, Chair Cantu. Yes, that question was specifically addressed to the U.S. representative staffs and the senator staff. They confirmed that those were passed in law and signed into law. And so that funding, they believe, is locked down, allocated and authorized and can't be redirected at this time.
Kind of like all the other funding allocations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I've raised this question for 3 years and now we're going to see exactly what I didn't want to have happen.
Yeah.
We were very closely monitoring every single dollar that was authorized and allocated by Congress and signed by the president for IBWC to do this work. And we fully expect all of that money to be spent on the international treatment plant and associated infrastructure in Mexico per the binational statement intent and the record of decision.
Where we find ourselves where we thought we might find ourselves. Anything else on transboundary flows? Okay, thank you. Our next part of our agenda is the consent agenda. We have one item, a very important item, and this is a tentative resolution consideration of a resolution accepting the Rancho California Water District Salt and Nutrient Management Plan for the Temecula Valley Groundwater Basin. This is an effort that's been going on for a long time now, undertaken by many very smart people to articulate this plan, and it looks like it's very well written. Since you all have driven so far in the rain, which is an unusual circumstance for us, we'd like to invite you to the podium to say a few words. And you were also the first ones to arrive.
We were eager. We were worried about traffic. Well, good morning. Jason Martin, General Manager for Rancho California Water District. I had the opportunity to meet a few of you this morning and really just wanted to come down and say thanks for the review of our plan, for getting it to this stage. It's been a long time effort, a lot of hard work. As you mentioned, a lot of very smart people, including Dr. Kirschberg, who works on our team, and some consultants to get this done. So just want to say thank you for getting to this stage and for approving the resolution today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody in the audience or on the board wish to remove this from consent agenda for further discussion? Looks like not. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move approval on this item.
I'll second.
Thank you. Dr. Ocean moves and Megan Blair seconds. All those, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Blair,
Aye.
Dr. Olson,
Aye.
Mr. Strawn,
Aye.
Ms. Tu,
Aye.
Ms. Warren,
Aye.
Chair Cantu.
Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations. You have a salt and nutrient plan. Our next agenda item, we have two items that we will take concurrently in their presentations, but we will vote on them separately. So items 5 and 6. Items 5 is waste discharge requirements for the Prima Discharge. I never have known how to say this. Dashiga, thank you. I didn't know what language it was supposed to be spoken in. Dashiga landfill, Zone 1, San Juan Capistrano, Orange County. And number 6 is waste discharge requirements for the Prima Dashiga landfill, Zone 4, San Juan, Orange County. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair Cantu and members of the board. My name is Josh Hufford, and I'm an engineering geologist in the Site Restoration and Waste Management Unit. Today, I've been asked to present item numbers 5 and 6 on the agenda, which are waste discharge requirements for the Prima de Checa landfill for zones 1 and 4 for Orange County Waste and Recycling. Because of the proximity of the two facilities and the fact that information pertinent to the agenda items 5 and 6 is mostly the same, and two presentations would be duplicative, this presentation will be for both agenda items. However, at the end of my presentation, the board will take 2 separate actions and vote on the items separately. The waste discharge requirements for Zone 1 and Zone 4 landfills will be referred to collectively as the tentative orders. At this time, I would like to enter the San Diego Water Board files into the record of this hearing. My presentation this morning will focus on the information contained within your agenda packages for item numbers 5 and 6, but will also include the following: a brief and simplified summary of landfill regulations pertinent to the tentative orders, a breakdown of the waste disposal sites regulated by the San Diego Water Board, a status update of the active landfills in our region, and then an introduction to the Prima de Checa landfill complex before discussing the tentative orders, differences from the current order, and why both tentative orders are under consideration of the board at this time. Now, it's been a few years since our unit has presented waste discharge requirements before the board. These presentations do not happen frequently, and it's my first time and may be a first for some of the board members as well. In light of that, I've included the background of landfill regulations and of our program before diving right into the tentative orders. I'll cover these topics in about 25 minutes, after which I'll be available to answer any questions. Questions may also be directed to Orange County Waste and Recycling, OCWR, the discharger with us today. First, I'll start with a simplified view of landfill regulations. I'm using the simplified as a descriptor because I'll cover the primary regulations, designated agencies, and permits associated with landfill construction and operations. But there are other required and site-specific permits that each landfill discharger must obtain. Landfills inherently present risks to human health and the environment by concentrating a large amount of waste in a relatively small area. These risks are best mitigated by strong regulations and collaborative oversight from several agencies on multiple levels of government. The key regulations that prescribe requirements and designate the oversight agencies are 40 Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, and California Code of Regulations, CCR, Title 27. 40 CFR is a baseline set of requirements for landfills nationwide that allows for more stringent state regulations, which is the case in California with Title 27. Oversight is designated to state agencies, which in turn designate a regional agency, or in the case of CalRecycle, a local agency to issue permits. The local enforcement agency, or LEA, can be under county or city jurisdiction. Each agency can issue permits for landfills, and the San Diego Water Board does this through adoption of waste discharge requirements, or WDRs, for preservation of water quality through specific requirements for landfill construction, operation, and maintenance. Our unit uses the WDRs to regulate landfills and other waste disposal facilities in close collaboration with CalRecycle's LEAs, who regulate more day-to-day operations, and by having less landfills to regulate, are at the landfills more often. While WDRs have groundwater and stormwater management requirements, they are separate from the construction general permit and industrial general permit for stormwater discharges, which are not specific to landfills, but do require enrollment by the discharger for operation and construction of a landfill. WDRs, including the tentative orders under consideration today, require the discharger to submit a joint technical document to the San Diego Water Board and the LEA that for an active landfill can be several thousands of pages. Staff review the joint technical document and provide comments to the discharger to ensure all regulatory requirements are met. This is often a long process with several rounds of comments over months to years until drafting the WDR can begin. These tentative orders are no exception to this process and have been carefully developed over the last couple of years. The San Diego Water Board's Site Restoration and Waste Management Unit provides regulatory oversight for 57 total sites in our region. 39 of these are inactive or closed landfills and burn sites, which have to meet post-closure maintenance requirements. 10 sites are active composting facilities enrolled in the statewide general composting order. And only 6 landfills in our region are active, and these are all non-hazardous or Class 3 landfills as defined by Title 27. The remaining 2 sites are active inert waste monofills, which are disposal sites dedicated to one type of inert waste, usually from one source, such as sludge byproduct from water filtration facilities. The numbers of regulated sites are not stagnant, and sites are added or less often subtracted from our unit's oversight each year. Now let's focus on the active landfills in our region, which includes portions of Orange, Riverside, and San Diego counties. We'll start at the top in Southern Orange County with the Prima de Checa landfill complex, which includes an existing landfill in the Zone 1 portion of the complex and a new landfill proposed in Zone 4. I'll explain more on that in the next slide. Together, these landfills are a combined 680 acres and have approximately 125 million cubic yards of waste disposal capacity remaining. This capacity is intended to meet the waste disposal needs of Southern Orange County until 2102. Just south of Orange County is Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, which houses our next two active landfills, the Las Pulgas and San Onofre landfills. Together, these landfills have a total area of 118 acres and approximately 9.7 million cubic yards of capacity remaining, with most of that at Las Pulgas. These landfills only accept waste from Camp Pendleton and are intended to serve the waste disposal needs of the base population until 2062. Then there's the 802-acre West Miramar landfill, located south of the runways on Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. While located on federal land, the landfill is operated by the City of San Diego and serves the waste disposal needs of city residents. Only waste generated within the San Diego city limits is accepted at West Miramar. The West Miramar landfill has approximately 14.5 million cubic yards of remaining capacity and is proposed to close in 2031. Finally, the 353-acre Sycamore landfill and 290-acre Otay landfills are operated by Republic Services and serve both City of San Diego and San Diego County residents from outside the San Diego city limits. Together, these landfills have Together, these landfills have 107.5 million cubic yards of remaining capacity, with the vast majority of that at Sycamore landfill near Santee. Sycamore landfill is intended to be the primary waste disposal facility for city and county residents once Miramar landfill to its west and Otay landfill to its south either close or greatly reduce operations within the next 10 years. Sycamore landfill is anticipated to serve the waste disposal needs of the city and county of San Diego until its expected closure in 2042. Altogether, these active landfills in the San Diego region have approximately 257 million cubic yards of waste disposal capacity, with nearly half of this capacity at the Prima de Checa landfills, which combine to create the largest landfilling complex in the region. The tentative orders for Orange County Waste and Recycling allow for continued development and operations in Zone 1, as well as construction of a new landfill in Zone 4, so that OCWR can provide this large waste disposal capacity to serve the waste disposal needs of Orange County residents for the remainder of the 21st century. Now I'd like to take a closer look at the Prima de Checa landfill complex. Staff use the term complex for the property as it includes portions or zones that are designated for purposes other than waste disposal activities. The 1,530-acre complex straddles the boundary between the cities of San Clemente and San Juan Capistrano in southern Orange County and is divided into 5 zones. Zones 1 and 4 collectively encompass 680 acres and are the only areas designated for waste disposal operations. The waste disposal footprints occupy most of each zone's acreage, while the remaining areas surrounding the waste disposal footprints are used for roadways, stormwater management, monitoring systems, and supportive features that allow the discharger to keep the landfill operational and in compliance with its permits. The remaining 850 acres are divided into zones 2, 3, and 5. Zone 2 is proposed as a trail system around the property, mainly for public use once the landfills are closed. Zone 3 buffers the landfills with open space and biomigration areas due to the habitat loss from landfill construction, which I'll touch on in the next slide. Zone 5 is Avenida La Pata, the main roadway for access to the site. It bisects the complex and divides landfilling operations between the existing Zone 1 landfill to its west and the proposed landfill in Zone 4 to its east. California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA compliance, is required for all active landfills. Dischargers are expected to achieve a compliance determination with CEQA before staff will review an application for waste discharge requirements. The Prima de Checa landfill complex is no exception, and staff have reviewed the CEQA documentation as part of the drafting process of the tentative orders. This includes the first environmental impact report, or EIR, and its first amendment from 2001, a supplemental EIR from 2007 for revised Zone 1 development, and the third and fourth amendments from 2021 and 2022 respectively for revised Zone 4 development. These documents were approved by the Orange County Board of Supervisors, which is the lead agency for the complex under CEQA. The San Diego Water Board is a responsible agency under CEQA, and staff issued a notice of determination for CEQA compliance after reviewing these documents during drafting of the tentative orders. Construction of the landfill in Zone 4 requires the discharger to disturb several hundreds of acres of native land and wildlife habitat. For the new landfill construction to be compliant with CEQA, the discharger has proposed biomigration areas in Zone 3 and wetland rehabilitation elsewhere in southern Orange County. This includes an acre-for-acre match for mitigation of disturbed needlegrass and coastal sage scrub habitat, and a 9-acre mitigation for every acre of wetlands on the complex that will be impacted by landfill construction. The discharger has committed to reestablish or rehabilitate the additional wetlands in areas outside of the complex, but within southern Orange County. While our unit reviewed the biomitigation plans during drafting of the tentative orders, the San Diego Water Board's 401 program is responsible for the initial review and approval of the plans. Staff from the 401 program are present to answer any questions related to the biomitigation. While landfilling operations are confined to zones 1 and 4, these operations have occurred for over 50 years. Waste disposal within the complex began in Waste Management Unit 2, or WMU2, an approximately 26-acre landfill located adjacent to and within the footprint of the proposed Zone 4 landfill. Operations in WMU2 began in 1972 and continued until 1980, when waste disposal then moved to the 125-acre Waste Management Unit 1, or WMU1, now fully within the footprint of the Zone 1 landfill. WMUs 1 and 2 predate landfill liner requirements and do not have underlying liner or leachate collection and removal systems. However, because WMU 1 and 2 are partially or fully within either the Zone 1 or Zone 4 landfill footprints, both WMUs 1 and 2 will be closed with a final cover consistent with the current regulations. The first lined landfill development was the 10-phase construction of the Zone 1 waste footprint, with the first lined phase certified in 1999. The final lateral expansion of Zone 1 was certified last year in 2024. The remainder of landfill activities in Zone 1 will occur within the permitted footprint, including a final vertical expansion that will bring the waste disposal area up to the final build-out grades shown on this map. Similarly, OCWR has proposed phased construction of the Zone 4 landfill. Construction will begin in Phase A in the northwest area of the zone, followed by 8 future phases for a total of 9 construction phases. Phase A construction is slated to begin later this year if the tentative orders are adopted. As an existing site, the Prima de Checa Zone 1 landfill is regulated by the San Diego Water Board through Waste Discharge Requirements Order Number R9-2003-0306, adopted in 2003, which I'll refer to as the current order. The current order includes a monitoring and reporting program, or MRP, that satisfies the monitoring requirements that state and federal regulations prescribe for all landfills. This includes a groundwater monitoring well network for detection of a release of landfill waste constituents to groundwater. Since it is impossible to visibly inspect the liner once waste is placed, the MRP is the first and best opportunity for staff to identify a failure of the landfill's containment systems. The current order also contains an information sheet with site-specific information and the rationale for the requirements of the order. As it's been over 20 years since adoption of the current order, and now that the site is fully laterally expanded, staff have determined that an update to the current order is necessary to modernize the requirements and allow for additional ancillary activities at the landfill that the discharger may choose to implement to meet current and future waste diversion requirements. Tentative order number R9-2025-0004 for the Zone 1 landfill incorporates these updates while at the same time preserving the existing MRP that's been effective for several decades. As this MRP is exclusive to the Zone 1 landfill and separate from the MRP for the Zone 4 landfill, the discharger has had to transfer existing wells to the Zone 4 MRP and install new wells for the Zone 1 MRP. The new MRP includes those changes, but is largely comprised of the existing requirements of the 2003 MRP. The new information sheet is also similar to the 2003 information sheet, but has been modified to include changes to rationale from new or revised regulations and to accommodate all of the non-directive language from the WDR. Unlike the current order, staff have limited the tentative order's WDR to only include directives and have transferred any non-directive language to the information sheet in an effort to improve readability and understanding by public and interested stakeholders. In addition to the first two attachments, staff have drafted 4 additional attachments for special waste acceptance and co-located ancillary operations or operations on the landfill cover over the waste footprint. These include chipping and grinding for mulch production, composting, and a materials recovery facility to sort out recyclable materials from waste. These attachments provide a baseline set of requirements for OCWR to implement these operations if they haven't already, as well as restart an activity should they choose to stop an existing one in the future. With the baseline requirements built into the tentative order, the discharger is only required to submit a technical report to demonstrate these requirements will be met for staff to approve the activity. This avoids the need for the order to be revised through a board action for each co-located activity proposed to be implemented, greatly reducing the time delay from the discharger's proposal to implementation. However, depending on the site and location of these activities on the landfill, the baseline requirements may or may not meet the discharge's operational needs, so staff have preserved the ability to revise the order and tailor the requirements for the discharger if necessary. Now, aside from structure, staff have also improved the current order by expanding the reporting requirements in the tentative order and introducing a proactive response by the discharger to instances of non-compliance at the landfill. These reporting requirements include new post-rain and seismic event reports for the discharger to submit to staff after significant storm events or earthquakes. These requirements ensure the discharger is inspecting the landfill for damage or non-compliance after storm events or earthquakes, and allows for staff to observe the landfill through pictures without the need for travel after every storm event. It's not uncommon for storm events to impact several of our region's 57 waste disposal sites at once, and in some years can occur several times a month. So staff travel to each site after each event is not practical. Therefore, these reports are necessary for effective regulation of the landfill, and to the discharger's credit, they have already been submitting post-rain reports, even though these reports are not required by the current order. The tentative order formalizes this effective tool for staff. The proactive emergency response from the discharger is a new update to the tentative order that accelerates implementation of corrective actions for any damage or non-compliance at the landfill. The tentative order defines several examples of non-compliance at the landfill that would require corrective actions. Based on staff experiences at all sites since adoption of the current order in 2003, there may be some confusion or differences of interpretation on what constitutes non-compliance at a landfill. The expansive requirements are an effort for staff and the discharger to be on the same page so that non-compliance is more quickly corrected with minimal impacts to water quality. The discharger must identify the noncompliance and notify staff within 48 hours, submit a work plan for corrective actions in the 7 days following the notification, and submit a report of the corrective actions 14 days after submittal of the work plan. These requirements will be built into the tentative order to help avoid the need for staff to issue investigative orders or notices of violation to prompt the discharger's corrective actions. Enforcement actions would not be required so long as the discharger complies with the tentative order. With the new landfill in Zone 4, staff have mirrored the Zone 1 tentative order so that the discharger will have consistent requirements at each landfill. This consistency facilitates the discharger's compliance with both tentative orders. Tentative order number R9-2025-0006 will have the same structure, though includes several site-specific requirements and information in the order, MRP, and information sheet. Although it's in the same complex as the Zone 1 landfill, the geology under the Zone 4 landfill is significantly different and requires substantial bedrock excavation. The requirements for this excavation, including any blasting activities, are included in the tentative order. The discharger has also proposed engineering seismic mitigation features so that stability requirements of the regulations are met. These features are included in the tentative order, as are the different liner design options based on the underlying soil permeability. These site-specific changes, while significant, make up a small fraction of the overall language and requirements within the tentative order, which is otherwise identical to the Zone 1 landfill tentative order. To reiterate, the tentative orders allow for OCWR to serve the waste disposal needs of Orange County for the remainder of this century, prescribe consistent requirements to each landfill in the complex for ease of compliance, and provide a streamlined path for implementation of co-located operations to divert green waste and recyclables, which supports statewide waste diversion efforts. Therefore, staff recommend adoption of tentative order numbers R9-2025-0004 and tentative order number R9-2025-0006. As mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, I covered the two separate orders in one presentation, but the board must vote on each tentative order separately. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Olson. I'd like to begin with sort of a broad question, and that is, could you go over for me the major concerns with our tentative order that the landfill had?
Excuse me, could you, major concerns?
That's what I raised my concerns. I wanted to know what, so the landfill wrote pretty extensive comment letters, right?
Yes.
And so one of the ones that struck my interest, that's why I'd like to know what you think their major ones were, because there were a lot of comments that they made or that the agency made. And one of them was the daily reporting request.
Yes.
All right. So I'd like to understand why that's necessary and what its importance is and what information it brings us that a 48-hour one wouldn't.
So the only daily reports required by the tentative order are for construction. So construction of, for example, this landfill, each phase. And these reports are drafted by the CQA or Construction Quality Assurance, usually contractor, that is separate from the construction contractor. So it's a separate entity. And they submit the CQA reports that show their oversight of the construction activities to make sure it's proceeding as proposed in the design report and this CQA plan. So staff receive these daily, the next day after the activities, and submit them onto GeoTracker weekly. Staff review them each day so they can oversee the construction or see the activities going on without being at the site each day during the construction, which can last upwards of 1 to 2 years.
Well, no, I realize construction. I'm trying to figure out, so they normally take a report every day, the operator.
Yes,
of the landfill during construction.
just during construction.
So all we're asking is that the report be forwarded to us.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry, I didn't get that from reading maybe I should have, but yeah. So that's good to hear. Okay, then I just wanted to ask, you said they received water filtration, I guess sludge. I thought they got wastewater.
Sure.
Seawater.
I was referencing the sludge and just describing all the sites in our region.
Uh-huh.
That reference to water filtration sludge was at different sites. We have 2 sites for monofills that only take that sludge from the water
But Prima
filtration.
Descentia does not get, does
Uh,
it get
I wouldn't.
water
Like
filtration?
the discharges.
A biosolid, but biosolids from wastewater treatment plants or drinking water treatment plants?
Wastewater.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, that just kind of surprised me. All right, and then, so, let's see, I had a couple of other questions. So it also said that they're to monitor all rain events.
After post-rain events, specific to as described in the tentative order, which I believe is over an inch over a 72-hour period.
An inch over 72 hours. And also there's a requirement for the 100-year storm.
Yes. So the discharger must have a stormwater management system that can handle a 100-year, 24-hour storm event. And the tentative order requires that this be recalculated every 5 years as a reflection of changes due to climate change.
Okay, then I just had one other question. This is a general question. It's related to another landfill. And it is the one that is operated by, I guess, the city of San Diego, but the land is governmental land.
Yes. This is the West Miramar landfill.
Does that present any unique situations or issues?
In terms of the only land leased on base for this landfill is the landfill and not the land that buffers. So if the city were here, I'd ask if they have difficulties in that strict requirement. That's, to my knowledge, that's it.
Now, it's my understanding, being from Orange County, that this is a well-operated landfill. Is that correct?
The Prima Descentia? Sure, yes.
Good morning. My name is Amy Grove. I'm the senior engineering geologist for the Site Restoration and Waste Management Unit, and I actually worked on the Prima Descentia landfill for about 20 years. It is a well-run operation. It is the only active landfill in our region that has never had a release. We believe part of that is because the underlying geology is very tight formation and it has a lot of fine-grained sediment, so it acts as a natural barrier under those unlined portions. But we typically have not had any issues with construction or slope failures or any of the other events that we've seen at some of our other landfills recently. So it is really well run, and we have not had any significant issues with that site in a very long time.
That's good to hear, so keep it up.
We have Director
I have a
Tom
question. Sorry.
Kutrulis.
Oh, I have a question first. if that's okay.
Okay, for our staff.
Yeah, I think so. It may
Okay.
be, well, we'll see. I was looking at the vicinity map. Can you tell me how close the closest residence is to the landfill? That's fine if it's better for you guys.
500 yards.
Okay, if you're about to introduce them, I'll save the rest of my questions.
Okay, Mr. Tom Kutrulis? Is that anywhere near close? I apologize.
Very well. I didn't learn how to spell it or pronounce until 3rd grade, so very well.
This is Director Orange County Waste and Recycling. Welcome.
Thank you. I wanted to say hello, honorable board and regional staff. I'm Tom Kutrulis, Director for OC Waste and Recycling. And our core function is to provide an essential public service while protecting public health and the environment. And I'll say first, I want to share my appreciation for getting to this point. I'll say OC Waste and Recycling, like the Regional Water Quality Board, is a government agency, and we both work for the people, right? And we want the same thing. So we appreciate the arduous task that with regulating clean water and are taking the necessary steps to not only meet the standards in our industry, but to be the standard in our industry. So your support in our efforts with regulatory oversight is appreciated, and to make sure that we and everyone else is doing their part. So we look forward to maintaining a very positive relationship and working relationship as we work on future projects that we are designing to allow continued providing our essential public service to protect public health and the environment, but also while simultaneously making it healthier. So, and if any of you would like a tour of the facility or would just like to talk trash, you can give me a call. We would love to show you what we're doing and talk about sort of our transition towards not only landfilling, but resource recovery and how we can better serve our public. Thank you.
Ms. Warren, do you have additional questions?
Yeah, sorry. So the closest residence is 500 yards from the
Yes.
landfill, and presumably the development has come to the landfill.
Yes, so they moved in 2012. So the facility that
Decades before.
Yes.
Yeah. So notably, there were no comments from any neighborhood groups or anyone, at least in the record that we were that was shared with the board. Is that because they're not paying attention? Is that because they're okay with what's happening?
We have a
What's
good
going on?
neighbor program. We are very transparent. We are in communications with our neighbors, and we like to work on being the invisible neighbor, right? Because quite frankly, nobody cares about what we do unless they smell it or it doesn't get picked up. So our operations run seamlessly, and we take into consideration the material that we're receiving, right? Doesn't smell good. And we have neighbors that close. And when the wind is not in their favor or our favor, there are impacts to our neighbors because they can smell it. And so we do whatever we can during our normal operations to try and mitigate that. And we have a system in place, neighborhood support portal, where if something's happening, we receive feedback from our neighbors and we follow up on it immediately. So we've maintained a good working relationship with our neighbors, at least we like to think so, in response to any concerns they may have on what we're doing.
Do the neighbors know that this request for the permit will expand operations and?
Yes, they were part of the CEQA. So
that's fair. Did they?
So
participate in the CEQA process?
Yes, and by the way, we offer tours to anyone that wants to come in and see what we're doing, because we are at this point, I'll say in the industry, where we are trying to get out as much education and information as possible on what is happening with your waste. Because of SB 1383, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but that's a whole different presentation I could go into, and the transition for the state to divert organics from the waste prism. And so that's why we're working on composting and resource recovery.
So there was like a neighbor group active in the CEQA process before the county board of supervisors? Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And then I just have a question for staff when you're done, if there's no further questions.
All right. Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Yes, Mr. Strong.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're the right one to answer. I'm going to start with a very specific question, then maybe apply it to a general comment. That your grinding and chipping you're going to go to on the new site, will that be able to handle palms?
Palm fronds? Great question. Okay. So what we're looking at right now is there is a way to handle palm fronds, and yes, it can be done. This is an area where eventually I think we're going to look at the process in which you need to handle palm fronds is they need to be dried out in order for you to shred them properly. So there is a process in which you can do it. Right now, we're focused on residential green waste. It comes in chipped, ground, and homogenized. And so that's the focus first. The self-haul is the chip and grinding activity when we have, I'll say, residents or small businesses bring in their green waste, is to chip and grind that material and incorporate it into our composting facility. And so the goal will be to eventually get to palm fronds, but since we are, I'm not going to say we're new at this, we've been doing it for a little while, we're always looking to improve.
Okay, and the reason I ask or concern, as you know, in general, landfills get a bad rap, right? You got to get rid of them. You can't have them. You can't use them. And sometimes that becomes making them more expensive and more difficult to use. As a volunteer that picks a lot of trash up along the river, I can tell you by the landfills that won't take palm fronds, there's piles and piles of palm fronds dumped along the side of the road and down into the riverbanks. Because they get to the gate and the guy says, oh, you can't take that as green waste. You got to pay 10 times more and put it in the landfill. So anything we can do to make use of the landfill cheaper and easier and more available, I think is good for the environment. If we want to reduce the trash going into the landfills, we shouldn't do it by making it more difficult. We should do it by attacking the source, which is, everything from food wrappers to, all sorts of things.
Yes.
That's my spiel. Your answer is good. You're working that direction, but I understand it's difficult.
So, and I'll just share with you SB 54. There's new legislation, SB 54, and which is extended producer responsibility that focuses on plastics and the reduction of single-use plastic. So that piece of legislation is being worked on right now, and also SB 707, which is textile recycling. So we'll be participating in that from an agency standpoint as well.
Any other questions? Did you have a staff question? Yes, Josh.
I guess first, thank you. I noticed that you'd done what I've been curious about, which is ask them to go back every 5 years to evaluate the 100-year storm. So I appreciated seeing that in the permit. But when you were reviewing the waste disposal sites that we have authority over, for lack of a better way to put it, it seemed to me that San Diego is quickly running out of landfill space. Is there something, understanding this might be outside your purview, is there something you can share with us in terms of what the next horizon looks like for San Diego? I understand this is, you don't speak for the county, but do you know about what's coming down the pipe?
Right. I did mention that 2 landfills are slated to close or greatly reduce operations in the next 10 years, 2 of our active landfills. But in terms of future landfills, there's not a lot of details I can provide on that or solutions beyond Sycamore landfill becoming the primary waste disposal facility.
And Sycamore is scheduled to close in 2042. Yeah, that's close.
Yes.
Okay. I thought I heard that right. Just making sure.
If there are no other questions, do you have a question? No. We're ready to entertain a motion it will take these 2 separately. The first motion will be to approve tentative order number Region 9, 2025-0004. Do we have a motion and a second?
I'd like to move approval on waste requirements for Prima Facie Landfill Zone 1, tentative order number 925-0004.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Stephanie Warren, my second.
Thank you. Dr. Olson made the first motion. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Dr. Olson?
Aye.
Mr. Strawn?
Aye.
Ms. Tu?
Aye.
Ms. Warren?
Aye.
Chair Cantu?
Aye. Motion carries. I'll now entertain a motion and a second to approve tentative order number Regional Board 2025-0006. Is there
Can I
such a motion?
so move?
Mr.
without
Strom
reading it?
moved it.
Stephanie Warren seconds.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Dr. Olson?
Aye.
Mr. Strawn?
Aye.
Ms. Tu?
Aye.
Ms. Warren?
Aye.
Chair Cantu?
Aye. Motion carries. So now it is our tradition to elect new officers in our first meeting of the year, which is the February meeting. And I'll turn the mythological gavel over to our executive officer to run the election, which will be fair and transparent, and all votes will be counted publicly.
Thank you, Chair Cantu. It's a statutory requirement of Port of Cologne, Chapter 4, Article 2, for the board to select a member to chair and select a vice chair. The regional board does that through elections. So I will call right now and ask if there is a nomination for the position of chair of the board. Yes, Dr. Olson.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Gary Strawn.
think we need a second.
And is there a second?
Do we need a second?
I think so, yes. We'll make an official motion.
I'll second it. Oh, well, I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Strawn, would you accept the nomination?
I would be honored.
Thank you. Chair, would you please call the roll, please?
Ms. Blair,
Enthusiastically, yes.
Dr. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Chu,
Yes.
Ms. Warren,
Yes.
Chair Cantu.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. Congratulations, Chair Strawn. I will now ask if there is a motion to nominate a vice chair.
I would like to nominate Dr. Olson.
Thank you. And is there a second?
I will second it. Yan too.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Betty, will you accept the role as vice chair again for another year?
I will, with honor, to serve with Gary. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll miss.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Blair,
Aye.
Mr. Strawn,
Aye.
Ms. Chu,
Aye.
Ms. Warren,
Aye.
and Chair Cantu.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Chair Strawn and Vice Chair Olson.
So do we adjourn? Do we go to close?
Our
session?
agenda, oh, I can't say this. You have to say this. Our agenda is complete. Can we-
Are we going to close session or no? Then I declare us closed.
Good deal.
Thank you for your service as chair, though. My
Thank you.
goodness.
You're
How many
welcome.
years?
I do.